Accra and the numerous affiliates across the country. Coming up this morning, debate on three critical bills considered as integral in the country's bid to secure an IMF deal suspended in Parliament as minority justifies its disagreement to these revenue bills.
It is not bad faith in the heat of these difficulties that we have. These bills, when passed, will escalate the suffering of Ghanaians.
Meanwhile, Speaker of Parliament is set to administer a question on approval of President Akufo-Addo's ministerial nominees today. Also in the bulletin, Director General in charge of Public Relations of Ghana Armed Forces says the military has received commendation for the invasion of Ashaiman, which left many residents injured.
The number of calls that I've received and the institution has received, thanking us for the actions in Ashaiman. Ashaiman is a place, there are certain sections that even the police cannot go and effect arrest. They won't there.
Brigadier General Eric Agrikoshi has been speaking for the first time since the incident, roundly condemned by many. Plus, Black Stars would have to improve their defensive setup ahead of return leg of AFCON qualifier against Angola.
Wasn't the type of defensive framework that Chris Hilton set. This wasn't that perfect, but they didn't concede anyway, even though you might want to play it around.
3FM 92.
The team has been basking in last night's Hartford 1-0 victory over Angola at the Baba Yara Sports Stadium. We have details of these and some other stories coming your way this morning. Please do stay with us. Let's begin the bulletin this morning from Parliament because Speaker of Parliament Alban Babin will later today put before the House a question on the approval of President Akufo-Addo's ministerial nominees. The decision arose after proceedings were suspended for 3 hours on Thursday night, but not without heated exchange in the House. The fate of the nominees, Dr. Stephen Amwa, Katie Hammond, Brenny Champong, would be determined today. Ahead of that, Deputy Majority Leader Alexander Fenyomaken has been appealing to the House to approve the appointees.
Members may have a view as to the number of persons to occupy a ministerial appointment. But again, the captain in charge is also constitutionally mandated to look at his vision and then again move along with a certain number. These are matters that can be explained and justified. There should be no worry at all for all of us to consider favorably these nominees.
Well, the House has also been debating 3 revenue bills government considers crucial to the country's bid to secure an IMF deal. Government is anticipating to raise $4 billion annually from the 3 revenue bills, namely Tax Amendment Bill 2022, Exercise Duty Amendment Bill 2022, Growth and Stability Levy Bill 2022, if passed. The majority, in making a case for the debate to be suspended, argued that the 66-page report was released in time for the debate to take place. Here's MP for North Tong, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa.
This, Mr. Speaker, is the first time I am laying hands on this report. And I have just noticed, Mr. Speaker, that it is a 63-page report. A good number of my colleagues are now receiving their copy. I will humbly appeal that they are given some time to go through this 63-page report so that we can study the report and be able to make meaningful submissions.
But the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Babin, cautioned the House not to unnecessarily delay the debate.
Hey, Honourable Member, please, it took us a lot of time to come to this conclusion. I don't want any person to come in and try to mar what we have achieved. We must tolerate each other, please.
We'll keep our eyes in Parliament and update you in the course of the day. Some updates on the military brutalities in Ashaiman, which left 1 person dead and many others injured during a raid. Director General in charge of Public Relations at the Ghana Armed Forces, Brigadier General Eric Agrikoshi, says the military has received thumbs up for the invasion of the area. He has been speaking for the first time on the matter at the annual general meeting and National Public Relations and Communication Summit of the Institute of Public Relations, IPR Ghana, in the Eastern region.
whatever happened in Ashaman was not something somebody woke up one morning and said, let's go to Ashaman. No. So many things are taking place, and our soldier dying became like the last straw that broke the camel's back. Ashaman is a place, there are certain sections that even the police cannot go and effect arrest. They won't there. Somebody commits a crime and you can't go there to even arrest the person. And so we're tracking certain events.
Brigadier General Eric Agrikoshi is Director General in charge of Public Relations. Interesting comments there. Well, let's do some health stories now. The West African Center for Cell Biology of Infectious Pathogens, WACBIP, says persons who have been infected with malaria and other diseases are less likely to show severe COVID-19 symptoms. This is because the immune system develops antibodies which fights the attack by the coronavirus as the human body adapts to the frequent disease infections. This was announced at the stakeholder engagement to discuss the research findings and a strategy which has been developed by the community. Here's the director of WACBIP, Godwin Asediba.
We did what we call seroprevalence studies, looking at exposure, looking at how many people had been exposed, because COVID-19 is mainly asymptomatic. That means most people, when they get infected, they don't show symptoms. So the only way you can tell that they have been infected before is to test them for what we call antibodies.
Queen Mother of the Wassa Fiase traditional area, Nana Abna Kunajua II, has called for her people to report suspects linked to the destruction of properties worth millions of dollars at the Wassa mines of the Golden Star Resources Limited. Meanwhile, the corporate manager of the company, Gerald Boache, says it will have to be closed down for about 3 months, which will affect their contribution to government's Gold for Oil program. Irama Smith has more.
They have destroyed over 30 cars. If anyone knows the whereabouts of these perpetrators, they should inform the police for them to be arrested.
The Corporate Affairs Directorate of the company tell us they will have to wait until the Mining Inspectorate Division gives the go-ahead for work to begin.
The cost is not just what you see, but also the knock-on effect in terms of the statutory payments would all go down. Last year, most mining companies contributed 5,000 ounces to our reserves. This year, we saw the new regulation or sort of bylaw that we need to contribute 20% of our annual production to the oil for gold stuff. So look at the value chain here now.
Muslims across the globe have begun a 30-day journey of no food and water during daytime to observe the month of Ramadan. For those in Ghana, the period comes with huge expenditure, but with many blessings that encourage an act of generosity. Ibrahim Abubakar gauges the mood in some Zanga communities and preparations for the 30-day period.
It is that time of the year on the Islamic calendar where Muslims increase their humanitarian services. The period teaches them how to practice self-discipline, self-control, sacrifices.
Everybody has a request, and then this is the month where supplications are answered.
Whilst food vendors see a drop in sales, fruit sellers, on the other hand, cash in.
Most people break their fast with fruits, so we sell a lot within this period.
Patronage of rice, sugar, and tea-related items usually go up during the month of Ramadan.
Well, let's do some sports stories now. It may have been a last gasp winning goal for Antoine Semenyo, but for the Black Stars, Thursday's 1-0 win as a major boost for the AFCON qualifiers. The Stars go to Angola on Monday with a slender advantage, but it is the performance of the boys at the Baba Yara Sports Stadium that got fans believing again. Sports journalist Sadiq Adam says even though the Stars managed to get a result on Thursday, they might have to improve in some areas of the pitch.
Wasn't the type of defensive framework that Chris Hilton set. But they didn't concede, even though you might want to play it around luck. I want to see a different Black Stars team in Luanda because that's where you can really assess them with Angolans playing and wanting to be offensive.
Well, that's all we have for you this morning here on 3FM 92.7. There's more news if you log on to 3news.com. The show Sunrise continues shortly with Johnny, Helen, and William. To stay with us.